Oh my gosh, panic. Buy gold right now. The world is about to end. No, don't buy gold, buy silver. Buy silver. Can I eat silver? No, you cannot eat silver. Buy gold now. Do I need to buy gold? Hello there guys, welcome to The Break. My name is Patricia Bright. We're here providing you the tools you need to learn, grow and navigate life like a boss and hopefully make money move in the process. I hope you are doing well. So you have seen the news absolutely everywhere. The stock market is at an all-time low. Oh no, it's slightly recovering. Oh, you need to buy gold right now. You need to invest right now. Oil prices have dropped. They're below zero. Warren Buffett has sold all of his airline stocks. There are 22 million people out of work and growing. The government is fighting. The world is over as we know it. The recession and market crash is here. Even saying that fills me with a ton of panic. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I feel a bit scared. I'm a bit like, what on earth does this actually mean? So today I thought I would do a video and I'll talk about recession, talk about the stock market crash or the pending crash that should be arriving or is already here, and how that actually impacts us all from an everyday perspective. Because it can sound very big, especially if you've not started investing yet, or you're just about thinking about doing it, or if you've lost your job. Like, what does this mean and where do we go from this, and how do we hedge ourselves in the long run? So if you are someone who wants to know, okay, I need to brace myself, what am I gonna do right now? This video should hopefully be for you. Now, before we get into this video, I'm gonna do a little promo shout out because I'm about to start a challenge. No, we're not growing our booties. We're not trying to get our abs. We're going to get our bank balances plump, juicy. Oh my gosh, I'm ready. Sorry, this is me meant to be professional. No, I'm not really good at being very professional because I like to be snatched, but I also like my bank balance to be snatched, okay? I will be starting a challenge. I have the most amazing financial fitness guide that will be launching very, very soon. Very soon. Girls and guys, I can't believe I've got guys watching me. I want you guys to be part of the journey if this is something that is really valuable to you. If you are someone who is struggling with debt, struggling with saving, wants to really build and expand on their budget, plan for the future, learn about investing, I've got you. It is going to come. So I'll have a link in the description bar below where you can join our early mailing list. I will do videos dedicated to this in the future, but I wanted to let all my breakers know in advance so you can be part of the journey. You can follow us on Instagram and we'll be talking far more about what is going to happen. But yes, guys, we're about to have glutes in the bank. So I'm gonna try and give you a layman example of what a recession is, but it's basically when there is a decline in economic activity on a global or a continental level. And this happens because there is an imbalance or a mismatch between supply and demand of the goods and services that people actually want and need. And this might happen because there aren't enough of those goods or services available, or there is enough, but everyday people can't actually afford those things. So it also has an impact when it comes to pricing. Okay, so I'm gonna give you an example that involves food because I am a foodie. Let's presume that there is a donut shop owner, the world or a country, and he has 5 donuts in his shop. That is his supply. But he's got 10 people waiting outside, ready and raring to eat those juicy ass donuts. But are they even juicy? Or is it because everybody's outside thinking that they're juicy that they all want it? This is what the designers do all the time. They create a sense of demand. So he's got 10 people waiting outside, or even let's say 50 people waiting outside for his 5 donuts that are supposedly piece de la resistance, right? Now, he puts the price at $4.99. Who really wants to pay $4.99 for a donut? No one. But people are still ready and willing to pay for that because guess what? It's in high demand and the supply is low. But in a recession, things have changed. Those donuts are feeling a little bit stale, or people are having issues at home. So he's still got 5 donuts in his store regularly, but there's only 5 people waiting outside. He's trying to keep it at $4.99, and they're like, no, do you know what? I don't need that. 3 of those people will leave, right? 3 of those people actually leave. There's only 2 people waiting for his 5 donuts. There is an oversupply of donuts, which is what you're actually seeing with oil prices at the moment, that there is an excess amount of oil right about now. And so the price of oil has dropped significantly because there's excess product, but not enough demand, because everybody is actually staying at home and not driving right now. Back to the donut example. He's got 2 people in the queue. He's got 5 donuts. Oversupply, it's $4.99, and they're like, hell no, I'm not paying $4.99 for this. I can't afford $4.99. I've got mouths to feed at home, and to be honest, there's rice in the fridge. And so the person who's like, I'm not willing to pay $4.99 disappears, and so he's like, right, I'm gonna drop my prices as well. Or he might not even be able to drop his prices, which is in the circumstance of inflation. So there's only one person available or who can even afford to buy his overpriced dry ass donuts that were once fantastic, but actually everybody is thinking about more important things than their waistline. So I hope that example makes a little bit of sense, especially if it speaks to your sugary soul like it does to mine. But basically, supply and demand, that balance, when it is out of balance, causes a huge issue and can trigger a recession. And I mentioned inflation slightly, but inflation is basically when the price of everyday goods also become more expensive, or the £1 you have today cannot be used to buy the same thing you paid £1 for yesterday. We got it? We together? We on it? Good. The thing about recessions, right, is that they happen they don't happen all the time, but they do come and go in cycles. You can have a recession and not have a market crash, but a lot of the times they do happen around the same time. But you'll see that there's actually a few differences between the current stock market crash and the concept of there being a recession, because actually the tech stocks at the moment have been able to prop up the stock market just a little bit, where you're seeing some recovery rather than a complete and utter crash. But what you'll know is that this has all happened before. So in 1873, there was the Long Depression that was driven by the US bank, the J. Cook and Company fall following a European strike. There was also the Great Depression that happened in 1929. And this is when people lost confidence in the banks and they started to pull out all their cash, and the banks had no money. There was also a double dip recession in the 1980s. And this is when the federal bank also raised interest rates, and it was awful for everyday people who could not afford to pay back loans or debt that they had because of the raise in interest rates. There was also the dot-com bubble that also burst, and that was again around the tech industry. And then there was the Great Recession of 2008, which is what a lot of people might remember. And this was caused by bad mortgages or subprime mortgages and over lending and overspending, and people were taking on a lot of debt that they couldn't actually afford. So recessions are not new, market crashes are not new, but they are kind of painful for those who do not know how to weather them out. So what can cause a recession? Well, as we're seeing in our current situation, it's pandemic. It is basically the fact that the whole world is on lock, although there are countries who are coming out of it. And there are some people who are saying that actually this situation has sped up something that was already coming anyway. Things such as unemployment also can cause a recession. So if industries start to shrink, so if the car industry shrinks, if the oil production industry shrinks, if the tourism industry and the food and beverage industry shrink as we know it, then that can also trigger a recession, because there's unemployment and people can't afford to spend on the goods and services that they need. Another thing that can cause a recession are really high interest rates, as you could see happened in the 1980s, or even really low interest rates. And we've had really low interest rates for a significant period of time, and guess what? Shit is still hitting the fan. And then another thing that actually has a huge impact on the stock market and it can cause a recession is actual human confidence. If people feel like things are really bad and they change their behaviors and they change their spending behavior, these things actually can cause things to happen. And the stock market isn't some random, thing in the ether. It's actually people buying and selling based on how they feel. So now I want to go ahead and talk about how this actually might impact you as an everyday person, as an individual, as a mom, as a student, as just a girl trying to live their life right about now. And I'm gonna get a little bit specific, and I hope that I'm not throwing anyone, but I know that I've got smart people over here anyway, so we're good. So the first thing I have to make reference to is government action. No government wants there to be a recession. No government wants everybody to panic and there not to be enough jobs and not enough people to be able to pay for food to put on their table. And if people are not working, then they're not paying taxes. So they need people to actually be buying stuff. So this is when the governments provide something called stimulus, right? They want to stimulate the economy. They want to get people purchasing. So how do they do that? You will find either the national banks or the Fed, as they call it in America. And in the UK, we have the Bank of England. They drop interest rates. Interest rates are currently at an all-time low. So I believe in the Fed have dropped it to either 0% or 0.05% or something super low. UK banks have also dropped their interest rates. I'll put the figure on the screen so I don't get it wrong, but they are at an all-time low. So this act of dropping interest rates is basically to stimulate and help the economy by making borrowing cheaper. So there is a good part to this. If borrowing is cheaper, if you are a business owner, if you're a company, if you need a loan, you are going to be able to get money at a cheaper rate. You're going to not have to pay back so much in interest. And so that is going to encourage people to take money out, take loans from the banks, take money where they need it to be able to do the things that they need to do without the fear of having to pay more than they can afford. So this is really good. If you can borrow money at a really cheap way, you can keep things going a little bit longer. So if you're a business owner and if you can get a loan, you can pay for your staff, you can pay for manufacturing, you can pay for your marketing and advertising. If you are even a buyer on the other side, if there's something you really need and you needed to get a loan for it, you then have the ability to do that because the loans are cheaper. So a bank might then set their loan borrowing at 1%, right? So for example, if you're borrowing £5,000 at a rate of 5%, you would have to pay back £5,000 plus an additional £250. It's relatively expensive. You might second guess thinking about taking out that £5,000 loan if you know you had to pay that amount on top. And again, interest rates might become higher and higher than that. So if you're borrowing £5,000 and then you have to pay £6,000 later, you're like, do you know what? Maybe not. But if you are borrowing that same £5,000 at a rate of 0.1% or 1%, which is much lower than the 5%, and you only have to pay back £5,050, you're more likely to take that loan to do whatever it is that you need to do. Now that might be to buy goods or services, that might be to pay for staff, it might be to create a business, it might be to sell product, it might be the money that you need to keep what you're doing ticking along. If you're a restaurant owner, you might need to take out a loan or something to be able to pay your rent for a significant period of time until you can get your foot back off the ground, right? That's a situation that a lot of people are going to have to deal with right now. But if you can get that loan really cheaply, that is a decision between shutting your business down or trying to keep going a little longer and see if you can generate more profits. However, though the loans might be cheaper, for an everyday person, it might be more difficult to get those loans because there's a huge risk of just giving money out to people who might not be able to ever afford it, which again, if we look back at 2008, that is what was going on. Loans and money were being given out willy-nilly to people who weren't able to pay it back. So what's going to happen is that the lenders themselves are going to have higher restrictions when it comes to being able to access this loan. So only those who have some kind of security are going to be able to get those cheaper loans. For example, now, if it comes to being able to get a mortgage, if you were able to get a mortgage with a 10% deposit a year ago, now you may be required to put down 20%, which doesn't sound like a lot if you just say it like that. But if you save £20,000 to buy your £200,000 house, you've got your 10% deposit, you've done well, you're ready to offer it to the bank, like, yes, can I get my mortgage now? And they say, oh, actually, we now need you to put down 20%. And you realize you now need £40,000, double what has taken you 10 years to build up. How does that make you feel? So it is going to be a little bit more difficult to be able to get a mortgage, to get a loan, if you do not have the requirements to entry, the requirements and the security to be able to back your borrowing. Putting down an extra 40K might seem even more impossible. And I think this is the worst thing about the interest rates becoming even lower. It is the fact that this has a huge impact on savings accounts. Let me just tell you now that savings accounts are basically worth jack all. They're worth nothing. I talk about saving, right? I talk about saving. I think saving is a really important thing to do. However, you do need to save smart. And the way that you would save smart is by putting your money into a higher interest savings account. Well, those are over, okay? We're just going to say like, it's a wrap. The interest rates right now are very, very low. Unless you're using specific kind of savings account, then you are not going to be able to make much of a return on your savings. And I know that some accounts might say, oh yeah, you can get 0.0001%. Listen, that means if you've got like £1,000 saved, do you know how much you're making on your £1,000? 1p. 1p. A cent. A cent. What's a farthing? A sixpence, a tuppence, like what is it? Zero, nothing. What is the point? Not only that, when you have your money just sitting in a savings account, guess what happens? You think that it's there and it's safe. No, it's being eaten away by inflation. Do y'all know what inflation is? I made a bit of reference to it before, but your money is losing value. I believe that there's a number that year on year inflation, or in situations like this, is around 2%. Your money is becoming 2% less valuable as it sits in an account that doesn't make any interest. I talk about this a lot in my financial fitness guide that is coming, but guys, your savings are not looking very pretty right about now. Okay, another thing that is a good thing, but obviously I'm gonna preface it with a bad thing, is that it's gonna be cheaper to drive. As you've heard, as I've mentioned, oil prices have fallen to like an all-time low. I believe that there was a value of like below zero for oil prices, and this is very scary. Some of the long-standing oil companies who used to pay dividends all of the time have actually stopped paying dividends. This is how you know ish is getting real out there. But if you haven't already invested in stock, you're not worried about dividends, you're not worried about your share prices going down, that's great. If you want to drive, if you want to fill up your tank, now is the time to fill up your tank, although you've got nowhere to go. That's an oxymoron. But I think that this is going to have a knock-on effect. So there's literally excess oil barrels right now. They produce far more oil, far more petrol than is actually currently needed across the globe. And so prices have fallen significantly. Now the hustler in me is like, you know what, let's go take jugs. Let's go fill up oil jugs. Is it oil jugs? I don't know. I'm not really good with this kind of stuff. But let's go fill up some jugs and like things and like pour oil in there and save it and sell it later. But that's, I think, is illegal and secondly very dangerous. Fire hazard to say the least. So this is probably the worst of the bad news, but I really want to try and preface this with something positive. But yes, unemployment, as you can currently see, is at an all-time high. And for certain industries, it's going to be like this for a very, very long time. And I have a feeling that there are going to be some certain industries that completely disappear as we know it. Now, even when the pandemic is over and when people are allowed to go out, the question is, will people really feel confident enough to go out consistently, to go and socialize, to go and sit in a pub with 10 other people, breathing their breath all over with their germs? Like, how are people going to feel? And that is something that is going to have a knock-on effect when it comes to work. So yeah, jobs are going to be very, very difficult going forward, depending on what you specialize in and what you work in. However, with that being said, I feel like a lot of the traditional jobs may go because the companies themselves are going to need to be more efficient. They've learned how to work with a more scaled back approach. However, I do think that the offset to this is that if you are super valuable in your company, you're going to be needed now more than ever. And how can you be more valuable? What's what you know, it's the skills that you have, have, your ability to actually generate revenue within a company or within your business, or to be an essential worker. That is really important. But also I think that there's room for another form of workforce. So as more people learn and accept this working from home lifestyle, I think that there's far more opportunities to freelance. I'm currently working with a lot of freelancers, even someone who might help me, edit this video right now. I'm working with a lot more freelancers at the moment. And I think that there's going to be more opportunity to be a bit more of a self-employed person, basically. Also, the technology space is doing absolutely amazing. What you really want to make sure you do is make sure you're skilled and talented in an area that is actually going to bring more value in the future. So I think that technology is doing really well at the moment because people are having to be on their computers, work from home. Zoom's share price, I heard, has rocketed. Things like Slack have rocketed in the marketplace. People are still spending money. They're just spending money differently. And if you're able to make sure you're in a space, position yourself in a business or a company or an industry that is essential rather than a nice to have, you are going to be a little bit more safer. But this is a great time to get creative. And then I want to talk about the stock market and investing. So a lot of people wonder if this is a time to invest, if this is time not to invest. And in my opinion, I'll say starting investing is a great place to be. So yes, now is a great time to start investing. There is a slight discount in the market. Things are low, things are unsteady. There might still be another decline. However, if you are someone who is looking at investing, then you are meant to avoid thinking about the drops and the changes that you see on an everyday basis, because we're not out here trying to be traders. And instead you want to have a long-term perspective towards investing, and also maybe looking at something that provides you dividends. But you need to look at what your own risk profile is. But if you were ever thinking about investing, now is actually a really great time to get into it now. Things are more affordable. You're seeing those who are able to shine, pop through. I think that opportunity is rife even in difficult times. So guys, I hope you found that video useful. I really think it's something that we need to talk about, and I think that people love bad news, and yeah, there's a lot of bad news right about now, but it is important to know what we can do, how it's going to impact us, and to know that things don't remain bad forever. Things do get worse, and then there is a kind of shift that changes, but who knows when that's going to happen next. I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you all stay safe. But don't worry, we educate ourselves no matter what the time is. So as I mentioned, I will be doing my financial fitness challenge. We don't actually have a hashtag yet, so I'd love for you guys to make some recommendations down below. It will be starting the 1st of next month, guys. Oh my god, I can't believe I've just said the date. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. You can sign up to the mailing list if you want to be involved in this challenge. And once it starts, there's no other entries. So yeah. Anyway guys, thank you for watching. I'll catch you all later. Bye.